I'm Megan DeFord.
And I'm Richard Talafera.
We're both coaches, and we're teaming up to have the kind of conversations we have with our clients. The sometimes messy, always meaningful, what now questions we all face.
In each episode, we'll take on a question or challenge about work, purpose, and all the spaces in between.
Think of it like the show Frasier, but with less neuroses and more real-world coaching.
So let's dive in.
Hey, Richard, how are you? Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth, Megan. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a wonderful holiday. And today we're going to talk about why not you and why not me, right? So I'm excited about our conversation today.
Yeah. And so let's talk about what recently happened up here in the New York City area.
Yeah.
The New York Knicks recently had their ticker tape parade. They won an NBA title, and people in this area went nuts. Everybody loved it. They had a couple million people at the ticker tape parade, and the MVP of the NBA Finals was Jalen Brunson, and totally unexpected hero.
Yeah.
For the Knicks. We always think of the big guys like the Patrick Ewings and the Victor Wembanyama's of the world getting all the attention and being the leader, right? But here is Jalen Brunson, 6'2", maybe, and he led the team to its first NBA title in 53 years. And there was a lot of talk about him not being able to lead the team. And I think deep down, he had the confidence to say, why not me? Why can't I lead this team to a title? Yeah, sort of what we're going to be talking about today. It's like, why not you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times that self-limiting belief can come from multiple places.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was just talking with someone on my other podcast about networking. And it wasn't a scientific study, but for a book she recently wrote about networking, she talked with introverts. And many of these people she knew. And the vast majority of people who identified as introverts and identified as introverts in networking were told this by someone in their childhood, by a teacher or a parent, someone saying, oh, they're just shy, or, oh, you're an introvert. And they've held that belief. So I think one of the ways maybe we can start this conversation is, where does that idea come from of, why not me? And I think a lot of it can come from a past narrative that maybe you didn't even choose. And that's maybe the first area of curiosity to lean into if someone who's listening to this has ever felt that, like, well, why not you? If I turn that question around, and is that an accurate story?
Right. Yeah, I mean, exactly, because so much of our programming comes from the stories, not only the stories we tell ourselves and the stories that other people have told about us. And again, that becomes part of our programming. And to your podcast, guys, talking about introverts and networking, again, that's a story that's been loaded up in their minds. And it's an opportunity to stop and pause and ask ourselves, like, okay, is that story true? Is that really true that I'm shy? Or is it something else happening? And it's really key, I think, to really check that story. And to also ring up a friend and say, hey, can we talk about something here? And to make sure that what you are feeling and what you're seeing is that what's being presented out there. And having that trusted friend to help you do that, I think is important.
And I think even within that as well, is maybe it's not a story that you've told yourself or that someone else has told you about, like, well, that's just not for you, right? Like, maybe it's actually about you externalizing and saying this myth of everyone else is more qualified than me, right?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before, where, like, we only see the highlight reels, like with Jalen, right? We see the
Mhm.
chicken parade, we see
Mhm.
the championship run, but like we didn't see him in the gym for hours and hours and hours
Yeah.
when no one was watching. Like,
Yeah.
so I think we oftentimes compare our beginning or our middle, our learning, let's put it that way, to
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
else's final success. And we start to get
Absolutely.
that warped in our mind of like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
just not qualified. I think we also forget when we're thinking about this myth of more qualified is when we're little, like the age when you walked and the age when I walked is probably different, right? When you started
Yeah.
to read and when I started to read was different, maybe around the
Mhm.
same time, but it's not a science of like at 1 year and 2 days, everybody can do this, right? There's this
Bingo.
this
Exactly.
spectrum. And
Everybody's
sometimes
different.
forget that as adults. Like sometimes I don't know why, but like I think that's part of this whole conversation as well is forgetting like, oh, comparing my 43 years old to someone else's 43 years old, but we're totally different people.
Exactly. And it's really helpful to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. And, we may have had differences in the time that we learned when to read. We were probably in different environments. So it's not going to always look the same, everybody. And like you said, we forget that as adults. And it's weird. It's
Yeah.
strange to me that we don't make space for that individuation with people.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to want to compare somebody, easy to want to slot somebody into a comparison that's easy for us to manage. And if somebody is outside of that formula, like Jalen Brunson, our brains go haywire. We like, wait a minute, how did this 6'2" guy basically become a legend in New York sports? How? And we're all like really blown away by that. And another actually avenue to why not you is a woman by the name of Rachel Etriken. And she is an ultra endurance runner. And she recently won the Cocodona 250. And for those who are wondering, that 250 is actually 250 miles. She ran it in 56 hours and with only 19 minutes of sleep in between. And it's craziness. And I saw an interview with her after the race. And when you do races like that, all sorts of stuff comes in your head,
Yeah.
right? And one of the questions that she asked herself was, why not you? Rachel, why can't you go out and win this race outright? Not being the first woman to cross the line after maybe a couple guys. Like, she blew everybody pretty much out of the water for this race. And so that's where it comes from is why can't you be the one who wins a super long, super hard ultra endurance race? Why can't you, Megan, start a successful coaching business?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, and because we've got other people's stories coming at us and other people's opinions that we allow them to weigh on us.
Yeah.
And we see other people with varying measures of success and we go, why can't I be like that person? But maybe it's going to happen to you, just maybe not on a particular timeline then that you want to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So wait, going back to Rachel,
Yeah.
did she talk about because I think sports is one of the easiest ways to think about this, but there's so
Mhm.
many other examples in our day-to-day life,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
doctors and nurses, like the amount of
Mhm.
training that they both have to have, and they literally can save lives. Like, but it is
Yeah.
literally it's just putting the reps in. It's studying the materials, putting the reps
Yes.
in, doing it. But did Rachel talk about how she approached it? Because I love this idea of like starting with, well, why not me? Why am I
Mhm.
limiting this to not only let me finish, which is
Yeah.
a worthy
Yeah.
goal in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
and not let me finish as the first female. It
Yeah.
was let me finish first. So that's great that you're
Yes.
like
Mm.
counting on yourself, you're putting yourself in that mindset. Then what? Like what else,
Yeah.
what did she, because that's a different level, obviously, of training and
Mm-hmm.
physicality, but mentally, how did she go through that?
She said something that absolutely blew me away. And the heart of it is, do you like yourself when things get hard?
Mm,
And we all run into that. When we want things to go great, we want everything to be sunshine and rainbows and strawberries and cream. But who are you when you are 36 hours into a super long endurance race and you still have 20 hours to go? Who are you when you are up 2 games to nothing in the final tournament and you lose a game? Who are you when you have a client call or you have a discovery call with somebody and it doesn't quite go well? That's the key. We all want everything to go as smoothly as we possibly can, but who can we be? Do we like ourselves when things get hard? I
and
think
I
that's one of the things that powered her through that.
and I think what you're touching on too is maybe part of the reason why people have these self-limiting beliefs of why not me. And what they're thinking about is maybe they have internalized a story about themselves. So
Oh,
there's external self-limiting beliefs. There's
mhm.
internalized self-limiting beliefs of telling yourself a story or comparing yourself to someone else. And I love what you said. Comparison is the thief of joy. And in this case, it's also the thief of possibility, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think part of this is that when we are limiting ourselves in this idea of why not me, we are only defining success extremely narrowly.
Yeah.
And what you
Mhm.
just said about like with Jalen and with Rachel and a million other examples that we could come up with, right? You have to prepare to fail. Like that is part of the process. And that's part of what you're training for. You're training for success for
Mhm.
failure, right?
A lot of people,
We never talk about this.
we never talk about it because we don't think it's part of the plan. We always believe that we're going to be successful in anything that we do. But, and I think in the back of our minds, we also know that there's going to be a point where things start going sideways, things kind of badly sometimes. And it's like, okay, who are we going to be when that thing goes sideways? And we don't talk about it. Part of it is we just don't want to think about it.
Yes.
Don't even want to consider it. Don't want to jinx ourselves,
Right.
you know, to this. And it's sort of like, okay, it, having that possibility of you don't learn anything when everything goes well,
Correct.
when everything goes 100%. You don't learn anything. You don't learn anything about yourself. You don't learn anything about your processes. And I had a boss.
There's a balance to this. Like you can prepare for worst case scenarios, but at a certain point, you're just living in this like apocalyptic situation, right? But I think preparing that something could go wrong and what is within your control. So
Mhm.
if you're going out for a race and a certain time on a race, you need to train through hot weather, cold weather, rain when you don't feel good. Like it's why you test out different shoes and
Mhm.
nutrition and you don't wait until race day. If you're a normal person to do that, we always have
Mhm.
this like nothing new on race day. And my
Yep.
brain immediately is like, maybe I should try a new goo. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But there
No.
are things somewhat within your control
Mhm.
that you can prepare for. But you also don't want to live in the like possibility of everything going wrong. You have to have that
Yeah.
balance of eye on the
Mhm.
prize, understand that things will go sideways, and then how are you going to adjust to it? And when you're
Mhm.
in that preparation mode and something goes sideways, and maybe you didn't prepare for it. Maybe you didn't handle it the way you wanted
Mhm.
to. That's also knowledge, right? That's also part of the whole process. And it makes me think about, and I can't remember the exact quote that Jalen said, but I've heard this from athletes so many times. Like Michael Jordan was always like, yeah, give me the ball, give it to me. I
Mhm.
prepared for this.
Mhm.
And that's like ultimate confidence, right? Like, and that's what we see in these end results, like this ultimate
Mhm.
confidence. But I think where people, why they're not betting on themselves, why not me? And they're answering that question of like, not me, is they feel like they need confidence to start. And
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
think you need confidence to start. I think confidence is part of the end result. It's part of that dividend versus investment. And so, what would you say? I think confidence is an outcome of this, but what would you say are the feelings that help you start, right?
It's a combination of curiosity and small steps.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're building evidence that
Mhm.
you can do the thing.
Yeah.
And as you are building that evidence, you're building that confidence as well.
Yeah. I love the idea of leaning in with curiosity and then start building evidence from there.
Mhm.
And I think what I always tell clients when they're like, oh, I'm just not ready yet, or waited so long. And the thing that I like to remind them is you've already started. The process
Yeah.
has already started. Like you're talking
Mhm.
to me. The fact that like this thought is
Yes.
in your head, you've already
Yeah.
started. So like
Yes.
lowering that barrier to entry is a
Mhm.
good reminder if you're like, well, I don't know, maybe not me. It's like you actually have already started because you're thinking about it. Now what?
Mhm.
What are you going
Yeah.
to do with it?
Mhm.
And some people don't resonate with this, but I often like to think about like, what's the worst that happens if you start?
Yeah.
What's the worst that happens?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't like it and you stop. Maybe you really love it and you're never good, but you enjoy it. Maybe
Yeah.
you win a 250-mile race.
Yeah.
So, like, what is the worst that happens if you start it? And what is the worst that
Mhm.
happens if you never start it? Like, are you willing to live with that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes the answer
Yeah.
is yes. Like, it's just really not that important to me. Fine.
And it's fine. Fine.
Totally. But like when you're really thinking about these things, and I'm sure Jalen didn't want to be in that gym all the time. I'm sure
Mhm.
7 hours a day of shooting hoops and lifting
Mhm.
weights and not going out to certain parties and saying no to certain things, it's not
Mhm.
fun. But there is that question of like, is it worth it? But I think like that combined with curiosity is really the way to jump over that limiting idea and that question that you're coming into this with.
It also feels like when people ask themselves what's the worst that can happen, that feels like that they can hold them back and not even bother trying.
The other thing that I was thinking about is, like thinking about your why. And
Yeah.
I interviewed an incredible leader. She's now retired, Gladys DeCluet. And she was the first woman, the first Black person, the first Black woman in many of her experiences in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And that was heavy. And we talked about that.
Mhm.
Like it is hard to be the first sometimes. It is often heavy to be the first. However, part of her drive behind it was she felt a responsibility so that others didn't have to be the first. And that
Yeah.
was her why.
Mhm.
And to your point, there was a community around her that supported her that maybe
Mhm.
didn't look like her, but said like, yeah, she's the one for this. And she never asked, why not me? Like she really was like, why am I the first one? And then felt that
Yes.
responsibility. So I think
Yeah.
also sometimes reframing it can be
Mhm.
helpful as well, and remembering what your values are and your why in all of
Mhm.
this. If it's something as simple as this, well, not that the saxophone is simple, but if it's something as simple as picking up a new instrument,
Yeah.
the responsibility level is very low. But what's your values? Maybe it's that you are curious, right? Like a
Yeah.
lifelong learner or something like that. So I
Yeah.
think kind of reframing that idea instead of why not me, it's like, well, why do I want to do this in the first place? Why
Mhm.
is it important to me to try?
Yeah.
Have you had a time where you've had to bet on yourself? And when you're saying like, instead of why why me? Why not me? And
I mean, doing what I'm doing now as a coach
mhm,
and having to put some pretty big bets on myself
mhm,
to go from a corporate environment to being a solopreneur and
mhm,
going, okay, am I going to be pot committed to this?
mhm,
Is this really what I want to do? Why do I want to do this?
mhm,
And asking those deep questions and making the move and taking the steps that I've been taking these past few years, even while I am scared out of my mind. Okay. And so I'm doing something that is totally new for me. And I'm like, every step is like, okay, am I making the right move? Am I making the wrong move? And if I've made the wrong move, you know, taking the lesson from that.
mhm.
Sometimes they say you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
There are like weeks where I'm in learning mode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And also at the same time, I am very excited by what I'm doing. I'm excited by seeing the people I work with reach levels that they might not have been able to on their own. And that's gratifying to me. And just seeing that alone makes me want to continue doing this. And
Mhm.
so those are, it's a big bet to want to bet on yourself, but it's exciting as well. It's like, what could happen here? Not in a bad way, but in a good way. What about you? Yeah, was there a
I
time when you felt like you had to bet on yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think this sounds, like, really arrogant, but I feel like I have always had to bet on myself, and,
Mm,
like, the thing where I struggle with has never been, like, my career
hmm.
or academia or anything like that, because I just feel like everything's figure outable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I've never walked into I look back on it and I kinda laugh. I've, like, walked into some meetings with, like, some heavy hitters, and I never felt intimidated, and it wasn't
Okay.
because I felt like I was better than anybody else or smarter than anyone else. I think I just felt like I wouldn't have been invited to this meeting if I wasn't worthy of it.
Mhm.
And the worst thing that happens, and I think we've all been in this situation, the worst thing that happens is I am overwhelmed and I'm just gonna be quiet.
I want to go back to something you said,
Yeah.
which was betting on yourself. And like sometimes, I mean, one of the things I've learned over the past few years is if you don't bet on yourself,
Mhm.
nobody else will.
Correct.
And you've got to put some chips on the table for yourself, even when it feels weird.
Yeah.
And you got to go in. I'm not saying, bet the entire house, but put some chips on the table for yourself. And if when you display confidence in yourself, people will go, okay, I like to cover it up. Let's work with her.
Yep.
And so, you know, as you've said, confidence is the dividend.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't. You don't get confidence first and then everything else.
Yep.
It's giving yourself that evidence.
And
That,
I agree 100%. And I think that some of the most successful people tend to be also the most supportive people,
yeah,
right?
oh,
Like miserable
yeah.
people are the ones that tear other people down for trying and starting
Mhm.
and like, you got to embrace the cringe sometimes, but you do have to bet on yourself. And I think there's a difference between betting on yourself and believing in yourself, right? Like the bet may turn out to be a success or not, right? Or
Mhm.
I should reframe that. Like the bet may turn out to be exactly what you hoped for or something different, right? But
Sure.
believing in yourself and loving
Mhm.
yourself, I'm still Megan, right? Like
Yeah.
I am
Mhm.
still a good person
There
who
you
is
go.
worthy of,
Mhm.
good things in life. And this
Mhm.
doesn't define me either
Yeah.
way, frankly, right? It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
another experience. So I think there is that difference between betting on yourself and
Mhm.
believing in yourself and loving yourself.
Mhm.
Um, is there any person or group or like that inspires you when you need a little bit of like, oh, I can do this? Is there anything that you tap into?
I'm rolling along in my mid 50s, and when I see people in their 60s, 70s, 80s still rolling along and having a positive, big impact in their particular realms, I'm very much saying to myself, I want to be that person one day. And those types of people are my North Stars. They, and I think in some cases, people, they may have gotten, you're too old to do X. And they said to themselves, why can't I continue to be of service to people? Why can't I have an impact to people at this age?
Yeah.
And those are the people that I admire. And those are the people that I look up to and want to be. What about you?
I think I'm always really inspired by artists and people just in the arts in general. And kind of two quick examples of that. One is
Mm-hmm.
Picasso, who I know is problematic. We don't have to talk about that right now. I like Picasso, but one of the things that I find inspiring about him, I was at MoMA for a massive exhibit of his years ago. And when he started sculpture, it wasn't good. And he had had a ton of success at this point.
Mm.
And it was such a good reminder of like, we're all beginners. Like, we are all beginners at some point, right?
Yes.
And I don't
Yes.
know what his thought was going into it of like his later works, if that's what he was going for. But it is through that process that you learn and you discover and you become. And then the other thing that I'm just constantly amazed by artists is that unfolding of the process. But when you hear about comedians and actors writing performances for themselves and putting it on so that they can get in front of people, I mean, the belief in yourself and the
Mm-hmm.
belief that you should at least get a chance. And that
Yes.
to me is always so inspiring. I'm like, look,
Mm-hmm.
if people can do that, you can try and run a few more miles. Like you can start a podcast. And if it's not good, it's not good. Are you
Yeah.
enjoying it? Great. If you're not
Right.
enjoying it, whatever. But like I
Right.
think it's just one of those things where like when we can look to others and get that little boost of confidence of like,
Mm-hmm.
well, they did it. So again, why not me?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all kinds of examples like that. And it's a testament to not giving up. It
Totally.
really is. Yeah.
Totally. And I think the other thing too, and I love that you said that, the clients that have the hardest time that I work with are the ones who have had nothing go wrong in life for the most part. They have no resilience. And like we're in the
Mm-hmm.
thick of it and they're ready to give up. And I'm like, this is just the process. The work is the work.
Yeah.
Like this is
Absolutely.
again, you have to use discernment on all of this, but like so
Mm-hmm.
many times people are willing to give up because it gets hard. And you're like, it's getting hard because you're getting better. Like the bar has raised.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's something for people to remember as well. Like, especially if you're going into it with a little bit of like self-doubt, right? Like,
Right.
but yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
resilience is so
So,
important.
so important. And it's important to remember that the work is the reward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
It's the whole
reward.
point, really. I mean,
And it's the whole point of the whole thing.
so, what would you say to someone who's listening to this and is really inspired? Maybe they've had something on their mind for weeks or months or
Mm-hmm.
years. Like, what would you say to them when they're saying, like, well, why me?
Take imperfect action.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, it would be great to have that New York Times bestseller right from the jump.
Right.
But if all you can do is just write a paragraph today, do that. If all you can do is just run around the block 5 times, do that.
Right.
And then be consistent about showing up for yourself.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's really about you showing up for yourself. That's what Jalen Brunson did. That's what Rachel Etriken did. And that's what scores and scores of people are doing quietly
Yep.
without fanfare. It's just they're in a way they're punching in and they're doing the work. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it's going to take you a long way.
Yeah. I think that really nails it and summarizes a lot of this. The majority of people who achieve their goals,
Mm-hmm.
it's not because they're smarter than you. It's not because they are better than you in any category. It's because they don't stop. And like that, a lot of times is the
Mm-hmm.
differentiator. Like, did you give up? Did you stop? Or did
Yeah.
you keep going? And it doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be perfect. It doesn't have to look the way you thought it was going to look, but just keep going.
Go.
It's really, and I'm a big believer in like everything is
Mm-hmm.
figure outable. And you do need to do it in community. You do need to ask for help. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot do
Mm-hmm.
anything in this life truly solo by yourself, but you can always figure things out. So, well, this is great. Anything else with Why Not Me that you want to touch on?
Just continue to believe in yourself
Mm-hmm.
and continue to plug in to community. The introvert is sitting here and telling you to plug into community. So maybe give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the extrovert who's sitting here, I will say sometimes as extroverts, it can be hard to fail publicly, right? Like and it's hard to have visibility sometimes as an extrovert. And I would say these are the people that you're choosing to surround yourself with on this journey, whatever this journey is, are people who want you to succeed. Be vulnerable, say what you need. And as much as we like being out there with our wins, be out there with your struggles too, because otherwise people can't help you and they want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, this is great. I think, the main things that we talked about is reframing that question of, you know, why do I want to do this? And getting into that, like, what could this be if I did it? What could this look
Yes.
like? I think not comparing yourself to someone else's finished
Yeah.
results
Yeah.
and not comparing yourself to someone else's highlight reel. We also talked about preparing for difficulty. I think that's a huge one. You don't have to have all the solutions, but know that this is all just like part of it, that hardship and challenges are going to be part of the
It's
process.
going,
Anything else?
no, no. It's just make sure that as you are doing this, that you're in your values as well.
Yeah, for sure. I hope that people listening to this who have been thinking about that thing, instead of going like, oh, well, that's not for me,
Not me.
list all the reasons why, what could go right, you know,
Exactly. Future pacing.
and then
What
take,
is the best that could happen?
absolutely, and then take that first step. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be big, but take that first step.
And just keep taking steps.
Love it. All right, Richard, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon. Enjoyed it, Megan.
Bye.